Welcome to Moving Through and Beyond, a podcast dedicated to sharing inspired journeys of redefining life, vision, and purpose after immense hardship and grief. My goal with this podcast is to give you hope and to let my guest journeys inspire you to make the choice to keep looking up. I'm your host, Carey Conley. Hi, everyone. This is Carey Conley. Welcome to this episode of Moving Through and Beyond. Every once in a while, I have people, because they know my story and they know the mission I'm on after losing both my husband and my son to suicide over the past 10 years. I've become very public about erasing the stigma of suicide and changing the trajectory of this epidemic we have going on. And because I'm very public about it, I get people who introduce me to other people who are on the same mission I'm on. And I am honored to introduce you all to a new friend of mine, Kimberly Tocco. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. It's always an honor to be able to share your story. Yeah, absolutely.
You have quite the bio, my friend. So I'm going to just tell people a little bit about you. So I know your background's in real estate. Mm-hmm. And then after losing your 13-year-old son, which I want to have you share your story, you kind of went on a journey of healing yourself and wanted to help other people heal. Mm-hmm. So you became, I'm very intrigued by this, a spiritual psychologist and a metaphysical physician, which I know nothing about. So you're going to have to educate us on that too.
Absolutely.
But yeah, and I appreciate you being here, Kimberly, because it's not easy to tell our story.
No.
But you and I have decided that it's better to talk about it than to just kind of shrivel up. So we're here to help people.
Yes.
And I would love it if you would just share a little bit about your story.
I'd love to. And that is one of the things for me, is being able to share the ugly of the story. I think with social media and today's day and age, we have forgotten to really dig down and share that ugly part. I mean, pieces are shared, but just the raw, ugly part, that's what people connect to. Right. That's what they're like, oh my God, that's how I felt. That's what I went through. And especially with suicide and having the stigma of suicide. Right. So, a lot of us, we go through life, oh, that'll never happen to me. And, here I was almost 13 years ago, random Tuesday morning, just getting my kids, ready for school, 3-year-old twins, got them fed. I actually got up a little early that morning, didn't shower, but I got up early enough to get the twins fed and wait for my teenagers to come downstairs. So I had 3-year-old twins and then my 13-year-old Jason and my 14-year-old Brian. And, Brian comes down the stairs. I've made a hot meal for the first time, little breakfast sandwiches, right? And he comes down, he's the emo child, and he kind of looks at the breakfast sandwich and he sits down, and all kids just want cereal and a Pop-Tart, right? Especially teenagers. And he just kind of, And then Jason, 6'1", pitches at 80 miles an hour, straight A student, most popular kid in school, so handsome. And he comes downstairs and he's bouncing downstairs and he sees the breakfast sandwich and he sits down and he pushes the sandwich across the table. Like he's mad that there's this breakfast. And I'm like, here we go. There's starving children in the world. You will eat your breakfast sandwich. And Dad comes downstairs and what's your problem, Jason? And right at that moment, Jason stood up from his chair and he was so angry that the chair fell over backwards. And I was like, what is going on with him? The hair on the back of my neck stood up, and I'm like, and he's right in his dad's face. And this is something this kid, of course, he's 6'1", he's pubescent, right? And we know these things occur, but this was, this kid was the stable one. The oldest one had some, emotional things that he's going through. And one of the twins had autism. And we're like, okay, we've got this one kid. He's got it together, right? Mm-hmm. So he continues to argue with his father. And his father's got to go to a meeting. And his dad says, look, you're not going to school today. I don't know what's going on with you, but you're going to wait till I get home. Your mother's going to take your brother to school. And just wait for me. So I go and sit in Jason's chair, and Jason's standing between me and the stairs because he's supposed to go upstairs to his bedroom. And his dad leaves, and Jason turns and looks at me, and he says, I hate you. He'd never said that. No one had ever said that in our family. That just wasn't, we didn't say that to each other. And I know, we yell and we go through these things, but that had never been said. And I'm just going, okay, this is what everybody talks about. This is teenagers. Right. And I look over at him, well, I hate you too. Go upstairs, wait for your father. Just not really thinking anything of it. Just here's this kid. So he goes upstairs, and I hear his phone ring, and then I hear the landline ring, and I pick up the landline, and it's Dad. He's like, hey, where's Jason? Just then I heard a noise. I'm like, he's upstairs. He's throwing his baseball against the wall as usual, because that's kind of, it's that what athletes do. Mm-hmm. He's like, well, I need you to go upstairs and find him because he's not answering his phone. And I'm like, you think he's going to answer his phone? We're sitting here yelling at him. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, fine. So I start walking up the stairs, still have the landline in my hand. My oldest boy is following behind me because obviously he's concerned at this point too. Yeah. And I go to Jason's room. He's not there. Go to Brian's room. He's not there. And at this point, I'm like, Jason. Starting to yell his name. He's not in the twins' room. So I walk into my master bedroom. And as you walk into the master bedroom, it's fixed in such a way that the bed is on the kind of far side of the room. And the first place you kind of go is the bathroom. Mm-hmm. So as I'm walking into the bathroom, son behind me, still on the phone with my husband, I smell gunpowder. Mm-hmm. Oh my God, I smell gunpowder. And immediately, my husband's like, check the guns. They're in the closet. I go into the closet, and the smell's even thicker in there. And I start panicking, checking the guns. They're all there, though. The guns are there. The ammunition's there. And I turn around, and I walk out of the bathroom. And as you walk out of the bathroom, the bed's like right in front of you. And I hear my son behind me say, Mom, he's there. And as I look in the direction of his eyes, I see my son's feet on the other side of the bed. And I remembered, I have a handgun. I have a revolver on that side of the bed. That's my side of the bed. And I know immediately something's wrong, right? Obviously. Mm-hmm. And I tell my son to go downstairs, get the twins, because I don't want him to see this. Right. And as I come around the bed, sure enough, he's there, laying on his left side, and he's got a bullet hole right in the middle of his head. And of course, I start screaming on the phone. He's dead. He's dead. What do I do? What do I do? My husband says, dial 911. Of course, that's what you do. But I couldn't work on him looking at the hole in his head and the dead in his eyes. But instinctively, I grab a towel, I wrap his head in it, I'm dialing 911. And that's when I saw his body reflect. You know, there's this thing that kind of comes in, and we're his mother. And I know I've got to do something. So I start working on him, and I'm screaming to 911, what do I do? What do I do? And all I keep thinking is the ambulance is going to arrive. They're going to find a way to save him. I will take him no matter what they do. I will take him. I will take care of him. And then I remember the last words to my son. Mm-hmm. And this is what I say about the ugly part of the story. We always think this will never happen to us. We always hear, be careful what you say because it could be your last words. And my last words to my son were, well, I hate you too. Not that that's caused his choice, but it certainly didn't assist him in having a clear frame of mind. This is the part that parents need to recognize. We are the mature ones. We need to recognize what we are doing in those moments and not be so childish and flippant with our children's thoughts, feelings. We don't really know what's going on in their mind.
I can't even imagine being in this scene, Kimberly, because how it happened for me was so different. Mm-hmm. I was not with my son and did not see him, did not find him. Just the depth of you telling this story and the feelings that I have feeling for you right now is just...
Yeah, the guilt began in those moments. Right. And, you know, as I'm working on him and feeling the air go in, there's a point where I felt him leave his body and the ambulance still hadn't arrived. Mm-hmm. And as that last breath I pushed in, too, like I'm just screaming at him, please, Jason, no, don't go. I love you, Jason. I love you, Jason. It is so, so, so hard to accept the fact that, number one, maybe I contributed to this, but number two, why? Mm-hmm. Why? Yeah. What occurred in those moments that made him think this thought? To go upstairs and say, my life isn't worth it. Mm-hmm. We were going to Hawaii in 2 days. He just hit another, no-hitter. It's like we really don't understand because kids don't share these things with us.
And that's, I think, the biggest part of the journey that you and I going through this have been on is coming to the realization that we don't know what was going on and for how long, right? You have to know. I think wasn't just an instant thought,
No, not at all.
right? So we have to know that probably been thinking about it for a while. Didn't tell us.
Correct.
Yeah. And something just snapped,
Right.
right? And it wasn't anything that you said or did.
Right.
But that's a journey, isn't it? To get to that point.
Here's the bottom line, though. Even though there's been enough time, it's almost been 13 years
Yeah.
for me to address it, and we'll talk more about how I made it through that. Here's the thing. Again, we don't take them seriously. We don't think that a 13-year-old who's straight A student has all this talent and he's funny and everybody loves him, and we don't think that, okay, he said this in the moment, but he's not serious about it. We just, you've got everything going for you. Come on, get over it. But in this country, especially in America, who's he going to tell? He tells his coach isn't going to want to have him pitch
Right.
because, it
Exactly,
could
yeah.
be too much pressure on this kid that wants to take his life. I'm not going to have him pitch.
Right.
And then if he tells his teachers, it's a mandatory lockup,
Yeah.
48, 72 hours. And
Yeah.
again, that's not what a kid wants. And like, maybe he was going to tell me something. Maybe by him saying, I hate you, Mom, maybe he was expecting me to be like, why would you say that? And this is, I'm just going to emphasize this. This is what I tell parents all the time, no matter how ridiculous you think it is in your mind. If they are in a place of anger, of emotional upset, and they say something like that, I hate you, or I want to run away, or I want to drink, or I want to do drugs, or whatever that may be, we have to take it seriously.
Right.
Something is causing it.
And I think because, unfortunately, of how prevalent suicide is right now, especially in this age group.
Yep.
Now it's been 13 years. So 13 years ago, there was absolutely no way to talk to anybody about it. I
No.
think between you and I and people like us talking more about it.
Yeah.
I know so many people now, Kimberly, that have created programs to bring into the schools. I think it's turning around, but it's going to be a slow turn,
Very.
right?
Very.
Because there's so much pressure on these kids.
Well, and what's even more prevalent, and this is what started to bother me, is the shame that people put on you, the shame that people put on stigma. Again, his father, firefighter, really popular. We have a ton of friends and so many parents. But after that happened,
Yeah.
they didn't allow their children to come over to our house. There was the secret, like, what really happened there. There was like, what happened? Because all they saw was this really centered kid.
Right.
And then there was the trolls.
Yeah. People
Saying, oh, it was his brother. His brother was jealous. His brother shot him, and they're covering it up. I mean, you couldn't imagine the rumors. And I'd get pictures sent to me with a target on my son's head and a gun held to his head. And
Oh, my gosh.
it was just relentless. And again, you should be ashamed of yourself. That's pathetic. And did your son embrace Jesus because he's going to burn in hell forever? Really? You're telling me someone like Jeffrey Dahmer's not going to burn in hell forever, but my son is, who never even got to kiss a girl? That's what sent me down that, like, what is going on? Like you said, it's
Yeah.
the second leading cause of death between 10 and 24.
Yeah.
Males are more prevalent because
Right.
they use a more violent means
Right.
that is instant rather than pills and
Right.
alcohol, which, can be saved.
Right.
And I don't know if you're aware of this statistic, but we have over 5,736 attempt suicide on a daily basis, every day in this country. And those are only the ones reported.
Yeah. It doesn't surprise me. I see statistics like this all the time. And it's scary to me because the ages are dropping.
Yeah.
You can now find statistics of 5-year-olds. So it's just, it's an insane thing that's happening.
Yeah.
And so much pressure. And I want to know next, what did help you get through that at that
Yeah.
time, and where are you at now?
So I can tell you the first 2 years were so challenging. But what I had to do immediately in those first couple of days, there was donating his organs. That was kind of like my first thing. Yeah, that's what Jason would want to do. You know, as a mother, we don't want anyone to forget our child. So that triggered me into what else can I do to, in his name, to change this foundation of suicide and ugliness to one of life.
Right.
So I started collecting funds and gently used equipment for a baseball charity to help kids play baseball. And I made bracelets for the kids. There's all these little things that we do to distract ourselves from that just liquid suffering that covers you. Yeah. And it's thick. Yeah. And you can't sleep. And of course, I found myself with wine every day. You know, I wasn't one to do marijuana, and and when they would take me to the first therapist I went to, she's like 20-something years old and gives me a brochure on suicide. I hadn't even accepted it yet. I kept saying, "Oh, it was an accident," right? I wasn't even there yet. So that was not the whole Western therapy did not work for me. Yeah. I was actually angry at God, angry at priests, angry at everyone. They didn't, in my mind, they didn't understand what I was going through. Yeah. So I did. I was drinking every single day. Now, was I functioning? Of course I was. I had my 3-year-old twins, one of them with autism. My oldest boy, they were in the same grade together. They had 12 months apart. They were like twins. Yeah. And that was a huge concern of mine, you know, and I just wanted, and then, my husband at the time, he just kept working because he needed to provide. Sure. I had to live at my in-laws' house for a month because I couldn't go back to that house. That's how, just the trauma was. Yeah. But I had to deal with it. Yeah. I had to find a way to deal with it.
Because you have a family to take care of. Same with me. I had a daughter that right after my son passed, got engaged and got married next year. And, I had a career that was taking off, and I just had to do what I needed to do. And I think it's interesting that you're pointing out that therapy at that point did not help you. I think it has helped a lot of people, obviously. But I want to know how, I'm going to fast forward a little bit, how you got into what you're doing now.
Yes.
Yeah.
So 2 years went by, and again, I'm sitting there on the couch. It was January 2013. I'll never forget. I'm sitting on the couch with my usual glass of wine, watching some stupid thing on TV. And, I'm like, I lifted my head up for the first time. And I looked at my twins, who are now 5, and they're like playing and giggling, and I'm like, well, they're doing good. They're handling this. Right. Look at my oldest boy, and he's still obviously dealing with it, but he's doing much better than me.
How old is he now, Kimberly?
He would have been 16 at that point. But
your other son, it's the older one.
Oh, how old is he now? 27. Yeah. He's 27 now. Yeah.
I can't do the math in my head.
And the twins are 16.
Yeah. Okay, great.
But it was when I looked at my husband, and he was so thin, and he was pale, and he was gray, but he was looking at me like I was going to break. And I'm like, and then I heard in my head, call me crazy, but this is what started it for me. Mom, enough, Mom. Enough of the pity party. Get up. And I kept hearing it over, and I'm like, okay, we're in these shitty rentals. We'd been moved a few times because of, there was short sales and things going on. And I'd heard on the radio about an extenuating circumstance loan. Well, by this time we'd had a short sale, we'd had a bankruptcy, we didn't, we were living off of just one income. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to see if I can qualify for this and the grant. Yeah. For 2 months, I worked with this mortgage lender, and I think 1,000 emails, had to show them death certificates and write about my son, and finally she's like, you're approved. And I'm like, wait, what? March of 2013, you're approved. But I couldn't find a real estate agent to help me. No one had been able to get an extenuating circumstance loan to close. You get approved, but when you get down there, they're like, it's not extenuating enough. Yeah. No one had ever closed one in Arizona. So all these agents, even my friends, were like, you guys are so in sorrow. We're not going to show you homes, and then get down to a week ahead and you don't get it.
Right.
That'll just send you down another spiral. So I said, fine, I'll get my license myself. Scraped together the tax return money, some change jar money, not kidding. Went to Arizona School of Business and Real Estate, got through it in 18 days, passed the test, and by March 2013, at the end, I had my real estate license.
That's something that I think one of the biggest things you get out of adversity is you find a power that is strength beyond you. And I am not calling you crazy for hearing your son's voice, because I do that too. Yeah. I know very much they're together right now.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
They're thrilled that we have met and
Absolutely.
working through us, right?
Yeah.
So I really just am in awe of what you did and pulled
you.
yourself together.
Thank you.
And I'm really curious to know about the spiritual coaching that you
Yes,
do. And
yes.
Yeah.
So-
because I'm like, what is that? Spiritual psychologist.
This is what happened when so I got the license, and my only point of getting the license was I'm just going to help us get a house. And on June 1st, we closed on that house, and watching the kids run around in the sunlight, and my older boy finding a room, and it was when I gave the keys to my husband. And like the look on his face so shifted and changed because he had his feet again.
Yeah.
He wasn't going to be pulled out of a house, and it made me realize, oh my God, there's more to healing than just, going to church and like just begging God to, take this feeling away. And
Yeah.
no offense to anyone that is religious, but you've got to dig deeper. And it became like, I'm going to become this agent who is going to change people's lives who have been through hardships. And in that time, I have sold enough to make $1 million in commissions, but I've given back over $350,000 of that to help families who have been through hardships start a new chapter. But I got to admit, in the beginning, I was still drinking. I started smoking marijuana to help me sleep. And I'm not finding the answers. Even though I'm telling myself, oh, Kim, it's not your fault, and I'm going through I was messed up. And I'm like, there's got to be something more. I need to know where my son is. So I met a spiritual psychologist, Carey Conley, in 20.
Oh gosh, I'm
Carey
friends with
Conley.
Katie.
Yeah, Carey Conley.
I've been to her myself.
There you go. In 2017, and I felt my son, like really physically felt him. She did the Gateway back then. And so I started to learn that from her. I started to learn Gateway and breath work. And then I started going to like people like Troy Casey and cold plunging. And I started to feel this different energy within me.
Right.
Instead of because I hated myself. I wouldn't look in the mirror. I still blamed myself deep within, and I wanted to know where my son is. What causes suicide? What type of energy is this? And that's where I started to shift. Are we flesh? Are we energy? What is the soul? Is our soul completely, that whole thing?
Right.
So from there, I began going to Delphi Metaphysical University so I could really understand both science and creation. Because it's not just, we believe in God. God, the creator, uses science to create us. And, we're getting a little deep here. But how do you shift that horrible sorrow and pain inside? Why are humanity's greatest philanthropic movements born from her deepest sorrows?
Right.
What did those people do to get themselves out of it and become calm again and again? Where is my son?
Right.
When is he coming back? You can't tell me he's burning in hell. So in that aspect, I learned that frequency, that the transmutation of stagnant energy means that we have to use that grief and sorrow and choose to flip it around and make something beautiful out of it.
Yeah.
So for those dates that he took his life, March 22nd, 2011, I always do something magnificent. So instead of crying on Christmas, I do something magnificent. Slowly but surely, the cells in your body that remember pain, the cells in your body that remember trauma, now have a new infusion
Right.
of a different energy.
Yeah.
It's slowly mutating and turning from trickster energy into love energy.
Yeah. Katie's helped me so much with this, as well as other people who have been able to also connect me to my son, remind me where he is, and that we'll all be together again.
Yes.
That's what I hold on to with my faith.
Yes.
And it is, I'm so glad you're talking about this, Kimberly, because it is such a, this did not happen overnight.
No.
You went through 2 years of
Just drinking and barely
right?
making it.
And
Barely
I
making
disappeared
it.
for about a year as well.
Yeah.
Continued to do what I needed to do because I had a coaching business that was thriving at that point, and I had clients that I was responsible to, so I worked with them. But that was, I kind of stopped networking. I stopped going out there and doing all the things that I used to do. And little by little, I had to go within
Yeah.
and start listening to God's voice, my son's voice, other people like
I
Katie.
wanted to kill myself.
Yeah.
Every morning I'd
Well,
wake up and I just wanted to die.
Yeah. Well, yes, because the pain, and it's never going to be completely gone.
No.
I still, of course, and you do too, I'm sure, miss my son terribly.
It's missing him.
Yes.
I can tell you that
Yeah.
the suffering's
Right.
gone.
Yes.
But there is that ache and pain
Yeah.
of missing them. But I heard you say we'll be together again,
Mm-hmm.
and that was something for me too. But I don't want to wait to be together with my son. That's what I wanted to understand. A lot of people think that he's somewhere up there floating around in the heavens, but it's just a different dimension. They
Right.
are here
Yes.
with us, right here, right now. What is matter?
Right.
Matter is energy.
Right.
How does energy become something we can see? It begins to vibrate so quickly that it becomes a form. One of the things I like to say is, we'll use the Bible. First, there was the Word, and the Word was God. What is a word? Word is a sound, a vibration. God, the consciousness of God, wanted to experience what it was like to suffer, wanted to experience what it was like to love, wanted to experience all these things that could conceptualize. But how did it become that? It became so loud, it became a vibration, became matter, and started creation. We are all a teeny tiny piece of the Creator.
Right.
In different places at different times, yet all here on one.
And that is a practice, a daily practice.
Daily.
I don't know about you, but I am in the habit of my first hour of the day is very sacred. I spend an hour in quiet time.
Yep.
I will read something, journal,
Yep.
because I have to. My first thought sometimes when I wake up in the morning is, oh, right, this is what happened to me, right? But I have to stay in that flow of, okay, this is all good.
Yeah.
It's all love. They're still here.
Yeah.
Look for signs.
Yes.
Right.
Look for signs.
Ask, talk to them.
Yes.
That has helped me tremendously.
Yes. And I think one of the things for me is I didn't start seeking mediums and things because at the time I was always told my whole life, you don't seek them. And I've had premonitions, and I had dreamt of my son dying twice before he passed away. There was all of these things that I was told, oh, you're just crazy and push that, it's evil, don't tap into that. But when I started hearing his voice, I knew to tap into that.
Right.
So yes, the starting your day in calm is so very important.
Yeah.
I wake at 4:35 a.m. every morning.
I haven't gotten that far yet.
For years I've done that. And of course there's occasional I'll sleep until 7, whatever, but it's that quiet time.
Right.
Because again, people forget, even though you can maybe deal with it up here, the cells of your body remember trauma.
Yes.
Science has proven that we maintain 14 generations, 14, study came out in 2017, 14 generations of energy trauma is trapped in the DNA. There's reports on it. So again, how do you deal with that? You have to transmute it.
Right.
And how do you set it for the day? You wake up in calm.
Right.
Candlelight, I don't turn on my phone. I don't turn on lights because your body needs to rise and wake with the sun. And that means don't flip on those lights because immediately you're triggering trauma in your body.
And the phone.
And the phone. So candles.
Yeah.
Go get a cup of coffee. Write in your journal. Enjoy those moments as the sun begins to rise.
Yeah.
I meditate with a group called Girl Hold My Hand every single morning at 6 a.m. We meditate together for about 20 minutes.
Okay.
It's a few hundred women. We do a lot of other things with that group. It's not my group. It belongs to Stormy Wellington. But for the last year and a half, I've been doing that. And what's beautiful about that is not only does it hold me accountable, but they rely on me now. They know if they don't see me that there's something up, and they immediately, Kim, are you okay?
Yeah.
Another example is one of the mothers did lose her son to an overdose just this last week. And, in a group like this, and you feel that immediately, I've been giving her messages every day. Of course, I'm flying out and I'm giving her all those. We know how those first days go. And this type of not only healing work for me, but for others still transmutes that energy. The more work you do for others and yourself, the more you will come back to that calm space and feel your loved ones.
So true. So I get messages a lot as well. people reaching out, telling me this happened, that happened. So I immediately start connecting. But I've also learned how to connect and wait, because the biggest thing I learned, Kim, after losing both my husband and my son, was that you need to honor how people want to be dealt with.
Yes.
Because a lot of times people will rush in and they'll want to try and console you in the way that they would want to be consoled, not knowing any different. Right. My daughter and I co-authored a book together called Keep Looking Up.
Oh, I love
And
it.
we wrote 11 chapters in the book of what we learned. And one of the chapters we wrote about was teaching people how to honor what they need and not what you need.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And like you, people's visions of us changed.
Yep.
We lost some really dear friends. And it's just, I think, because they just didn't know how to deal with it.
But were they dear friends?
Well, I just think that, you know what? No judgment on them.
Right.
Because it's the biggest thing we also learned is grace and mercy, grace and mercy.
Yes.
But they don't know what we're really dealing with.
Right.
So.
Yeah, they become fearful.
Yes.
And, my biggest advice, do not ask, how are you doing? Because no one's doing well in those first year, 2 years. The best thing you can do is just have a presence.
Right.
Just through presence. Let them know that you're thinking of them,
Right.
that you're there. But you're right. That process of grief and pain is so different.
Yeah.
And they're like, there's these stages. Well, there's stages, but they're scrambled. They're mixed up. They're going away. They're coming back.
And what works for you does not necessarily work for me.
Nope, like therapy.
Yeah.
Did not work for me.
Right. Right.
And here's the other thing, and I'm, again, not trying to pick on Western medicine, but you can sit there with a therapist and tell them over and over all these things, and they really, because of the restrictions, can't give you really practical advice above and beyond what they are licensed and able to tell you. A spiritual psychologist can dig in there and help you find the ugly that you're not facing.
Yeah.
A spiritual psychologist will take you down that path. Now, is it necessary to go down and dig out the roots and, we got to address the trauma? No. But what's important is that we pull up that spot in which you feel the suffering, but then I remind you to come back to love. I remind you that the greatest love affair you can have is with that person in the mirror. Because some days I still don't like myself.
Right.
Some days I still think about, should I leave the planet today?
Yeah.
And why don't I? Why don't I leave the planet? Because of the ripple effect.
Yeah.
And that's the other part of the metaphysical journey that I discovered. Again, finding out trapped in the DNA is the energy and the ripple effect. I truly believe deep inside, if you believe in karma, if you believe in past lives, by choosing life, this entire lifetime, no matter what it throws at me, I will break that cycle of suicide, not only for myself in my next becoming, but also for my son, because my DNA is now in him. It will forever be with him.
Right.
So I will break that, and he will never have to face that again, and neither will any of my other children. There truly is a pattern to addictions, to suicide, to all of these things that are occurring. So there has to be an energy to it.
Yeah.
And how do we transmute it?
Yeah. So
we choose
fascinating.
life.
Yeah.
We choose life.
Yes, I agree with you 3,000%. It is a choice every day. And it's reminding ourselves that we are loved, forgiven. We are all connected. I've learned, and it's so funny that you said that you don't seek mediums out. I've never sought a medium out, but they randomly started showing up in my life.
Of course they do, yeah.
So Katie Kylene being one of them.
Yes.
Because she's connected to some other people.
Yes.
So this is so beautiful for you to come and share this story.
Yeah.
I know that you have a couple of books. You want to
I
mention
do.
those real quick?
I do. So in that first year, one of the things I did to deal with my insanity and my insane thoughts was I blogged under a pseudonym. And then years later, when I wanted to tell my story, and I did go on the news and stuff, but I was just this sad little mother, and she had a cute little charity, and the poor woman, and they're really not going to take you seriously.
Yeah.
So that's why I pursued so heavily the real estate. I needed to become somewhat successful for people to pay attention.
Right.
Because that's truly what overcoming is.
Yeah.
It's not enough just to, somewhat function during the day. You got to overcome it.
Yeah.
So I got on HGTV and I started the podcast, and I'm making some good money and I'm training a team, and I knew it was time to launch my book, which takes one of the blogs that was so crazy and ugly, and then I reflect back on it as the healed woman at the time, 2019, that I was writing it.
That's
so
awesome.
It's called Overcome, Memoirs of a Suicide. Again, taking that time to transmute. I launched this on my birthday, March 11th, 2020. Of course, COVID hit 3 days later. I was going to do stage performances of stories of overcoming, but it did reach number 1.
Nice.
I was very proud of that. But all the metaphysical journey and everything that happened after that brought me down another path to understanding Creator, God. I had to realize I died that day too with my son. I had to figure out who I was again. So in September of this year, I launched Tenacious Angels. I did a huge performance in London because that's my homeland, and I'll be taking that performance across the country. It's telling my story, but also, I end it with what I call my own making God spark meditation. In my way, I plant a seed within the heart of each and every one that hears that meditation, so that if they should ever, and I'm going to get blunt here, so I'm going to warn you, if you should ever find yourself sitting there, wanting to put that gun in your mouth. Those people aren't going to tap their face and do all these techniques. They're sitting there with a gun in their mouth. They're ready to make that choice. But that seed I planted, they will hear my voice and say, give it 5 more minutes. Give it 1 more hour. Your heart is beating so fast in that moment because it's begging you to choose life. And that's part of the end of every single speaking engagement that I do. I bring them through the God Spark meditation, and then we dance to the Shiva, 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 which is joy. And, you know, embracing all these different beliefs and religions, it just comes down to your heart.
Right.
Choose life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You said something really interesting I want to end on, because I'm going to have to bring you back so we can talk about this. When you said you died that day too. Yeah, totally get that.
Yeah.
And yeah, you have to, after that, you have to go, you're going through a whole, right?
I didn't know who I was.
Yeah.
I had no idea. And I didn't know that I didn't know.
Yeah.
I just kept saying, where's that person I was before?
Right.
That magic is gone. Yeah.
Yeah.
She died too.
Right.
Period.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I appreciate you so much.
I appreciate
and
it too.
I know that you sharing your story is going to help a lot of people.
Yeah.
The mission that you're on and I'm on is huge.
Yeah.
And there are days.
Yeah.
I joke about it and tell people there are days where I want to go be a greeter at Walmart and just, do something simple.
Right.
Yeah. Quit telling my story.
I'm going to work on a fishing boat.
But I just really want everybody that's listening to really understand that you do have a choice.
Yes.
We feel you if you've been through this.
Yeah.
And there are ways to heal. So I appreciate you so much for being here.
And give it 5 more minutes.
Give it 5 more
5
minutes.
minutes at a time.
Yeah.
Just let it scream, cry, just let it out, let that energy out, and choose life. Yeah.
Thank you, Kim.
No, thank you.
My newfound friend.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me on.
You're welcome. Thank you, everybody, for listening to this episode of Moving Through and Beyond. I'm Carey Conley, and I'm here to remind you to keep looking up. If you found this episode inspiring or helpful, please share it with a friend or a family member. In order to be successful on this mission, I can't do it alone. Connect with me at www.careyconley.com, and don't forget to sign up for my weekly Do It On Purpose newsletter. Let's build this life-giving vision movement together to end this epidemic, save lives, and create purpose.